Welcome to this episode of the Awakened Goddess Show, the place to be for practical spirituality for daily living. Welcome, Shakima, to the Awakened Goddess Show. I'm so excited to have you here today to talk about the 411 on starting a spiritual business that feeds your soul. So, welcome.
Thank you. I am incredibly excited to be here.
Let's just dive right in. You're talking about starting a spiritual business. So, what exactly makes a business spiritual?
In my opinion, what I feel that makes a business spiritual is when you are, I would say, you're bringing forth your beliefs, you're bringing forth your ideals, your power, so to speak, and you're fusing that into your business. It doesn't necessarily have to be a spirituality based business in terms of something that's in the spiritual realm, but you're bringing forth more of yourself. You're being open with your clients or customers, whoever they may be, and you're bringing all of that to the forefront in terms of you running this business.
So it sounds like there's more presence and that greater awareness that there's something larger than yourself that's bringing forth the information that you're sharing or whatever it is that you're providing in your service or your product.
Yes, definitely. Your values, what you believe in, becomes a big part of that. Sometimes, and you see this in the business world and hear it all the time about infusing your personality into your brand. And when you have certain values, you believe in certain things. You could be a person that feels really strongly about service or feels really strongly about helping your clients get through something or going from point A to point B. And a lot of what you speak about in your business has to do with those topics and they touch back on what your personal values are. So it's bringing a lot of your personal stuff into the forefront and into your business and then feeling okay with that because that's also a separate issue, feeling okay with it.
I like
Hmm.
what you're saying about infusing your personality, and it almost feels like a more holistic experience that you're bringing
Yes,
to the table.
it is. I find that when people do that, it's a whole lot easier to market yourself. It's a whole lot easier to brand yourself because it's all you. And you don't have to feel like you are putting on some type of facade, so to speak, or that your representative is speaking on behalf of you. It's all you. And you are the one who is showing the world, this is who I am, and this is what I'm about, and this is what I do. And you leave that out there for them to accept.
I've started my spiritual journey when I was in my early 20s, and I've been an entrepreneur also since my early 20s. And that's been a huge struggle for me is really allowing myself to be vulnerable and authentic. And I thought I was being authentic and genuine, but there was a part of me that felt like I had to fill a role or look a certain way or act a certain way in my business or how I presented myself. And so that was a huge turning point for me when I recognized that people really want to see you and your personality and who you really are, not just this perfect facade of what you think they want to see.
That's so very true. I would say originality is always key, especially in this business world. We can easily emulate each other. Or it happens so quickly sometimes you don't even it sneaks up on you because you see what someone else is doing and you think, oh, that's good, that's working for them. Maybe if I tweak who I am or I tweak what I offer or I tweak the way I speak to my clients or customers to what they're doing, then maybe I'll have those type of successes too.
Yeah.
And you start making those small changes, or you even start to feel bad about what you're doing because it's not as awesome or so you think as what they're doing. And that's where that pattern starts of you pulling out more of yourself and doing what you think you should do. And it can be a slippery slope because people recognize that when you go from talking in your voice and you're sending out your newsletters or you're doing your social media or whatever the case may be, and you go from talking in your voice to now trying to talk in a different voice or emulate those other people notice that, and we don't think do, but they do. And some people are even blunt and may just come out and say, "This doesn't sound like you anymore. You don't sound like you used to." And that just goes to show that they really were enjoying who you were as a person. They were enjoying you for you, and they wanted to hear what you had to say and your thoughts and your opinions. And they just want you to be that person. They want you to
Yeah.
be you. So,
I'm totally guilty of that. I've looked at other people's things and I don't have a branding background or marketing background. And I see these people with really glossy, beautiful websites and their copy, their wording is so amazing. And so,
we're all
oh,
guilty,
yeah.
and it happens all the time, but you also have to remind yourself that they started exactly where you are. And
Exactly.
it's been just an evolution for them, just like it's an evolution for you and for anyone else out there who is, thinking about starting a business or who has just started it and they're trying to infuse more of themselves into their business and into their brands, but they're feeling confused. It's all an evolution and will all work out eventually.
Well, and I think too, one of the hardest lessons I learned was when I was presenting myself with this other, we'll just use facade or mask or whatever we want to call it. When I wasn't really in touch with my authentic self, people just weren't resonating with me
Hmm.
because they're on an energetic level, they can feel that there's something off. They don't necessarily know what it is, but that can stop them from making that purchase. Because if you're saying one thing, but they're feeling something different, there's that discord there. And
Yes,
so,
there's definitely a disconnect there.
right.
And you are 100% right. People can sense that and feel it. I feel like when you are coming from a place of your own truth, things flow differently. Everything you say flows differently. Everything you write flows differently. You're being vulnerable, you're being open, you're not afraid to show your flaws to people. And that's where the connection happens. In those spaces when people get to see she's human, she's just like me. This has happened to me, and I felt that way too. And it's
Yeah.
okay because it happens to everyone. Everyone may feel that way at a certain time. But when you start to put on that facade of everything's perfect, everything's fine, and there's peaches and rainbows, and we can just, you should work with me and everything's beautiful. That's good too. And that works for some people. But the truth of the matter is, we aren't all okay all the time.
Right.
And I think that people connect in those moments to others who may not have been okay at a certain time as well. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? It's a deeper connection.
I think that's really important for coaches. The say not to try to be perfect because people really don't relate and they don't want perfect. They want to know that you've been there, that you can understand what they're going through. And
Hmm.
so that's an excellent point.
Yes.
So let's get to the nuts and bolts and let's look at how is it that someone can start their business based on spirituality. So what are those first initial steps that they need to
Hmm.
take?
Well, I believe the first initial steps are to figure out exactly what it is that you want to do. And so you may have an idea in mind and you have this business idea and it's big and it's bright and it's shiny and you're like, yes, this is going to be amazing. And that's fine. And so once you have that idea, you have to flesh it out a bit. You have to look at the experience behind it and how people are going to utilize your services, what the end result is going to be that they're going to get from working with you. And once you work those details out, it kind of gives you a clear map of where to start. When I started my business, it was like a whole different industry, right? I started off in concierge services and then I switched. And all of that switching, that happens for a lot of people as you that are starting a business. You switch things around. But all of that switching was basically gearing me up for what I knew I wanted to do all along, but I was holding myself back from it. I was putting my own limitation on my expertise and thinking that I couldn't do it because XYZ, and all of that stuff was totally invalid.
Mhm.
So when I got to the point where I said, I would love to help people start their businesses, I had to ask myself those questions. Why do you want to help people start their businesses? And what does that look like for you? And how do you want to help people start their businesses? And what is the end result that you want them to achieve from working with you? So it's basically like the 5 W: when, where, and why. Asking yourself the 5 W's of your idea is where you need to start. And I would say after you have that down, and you are really ready to take this to the next level, if you want to have the type of business and brand where you are infusing your personality into it and you're bringing your spirituality forward, then you also need to examine what that looks like for you. Are you going to, because when you start talking about your spirituality and what's important to you, that can come through in so many different ways. So, I know people who are spiritual in the sense it's like religious spiritual. And so they have businesses and they bring that part of them out. They bring their scriptures out and they bring their beliefs out. And it's very, their business kind of becomes not necessarily religion based, but that's what their clients and customers and followers or so ever have grown to be comfortable with. This person is going to talk about God or whoever they want to talk about. Then you have people who have the type of spirituality that's just based in, you have certain ideals, you have certain faiths, you have certain beliefs. And like you said before, it's a more holistic approach. And so bringing that out could be a matter of you're showing the positive side of things to people, or you are helping them through their issues or whatever it is that's going on, and you're giving them the roadmap that they can follow that's going to, I would say, enhance who they are. So there's many ways of bringing out your personal spirituality into your brand. It's just you figuring out which way you want to go.
Mhm.
Does that make
It does,
sense?
it does, yeah.
Good.
And there are the people that it's their service that they're providing
Yes.
too,
Yes,
product and service.
exactly.
So that's a lot of different ways to say that it can be expressed. So here's a question for you. What do you find in your experience are the main obstacles that women run across when they're starting their business or when they're in business? What are those obstacles that get in their way to creating what is it they think that they want to create, the success or the type of business?
I think some of the initial obstacles that happen, number one, a lot of it's personal. I will say that right now, because a lot of the times we put our own obstacles in front of ourselves. But feeling like you're not qualified,
Mm.
that's probably one of the biggest things that you hit, I would say, immediately after starting your business. Because you will now be in a position where you have to market yourself. You have to market your services. And as you're putting that out there into the world, there's always that little nagging voice that's like, can you really do that? Are you sure that you're as good as you say you are in this
Yeah.
copy? Yeah, are you sure about that? And so you have to get over that hump of really believing in your product, your service, or whatever it is that you have to offer, and feeling very strongly about that, knowing without a shadow of a doubt that yes, I am qualified and I can do this. Then the next thing that most people run up against is the clients. Where am I going to find these people? How am I going to get these clients? And then opening those doors, because I feel like depending on what industry you go in, you have to be vulnerable, you have to be social, you have to be willing and ready to do whatever it takes to get those clients. And then you also have to be willing to hear no sometimes. And that hurts for a new business owner. The first few times that it happens, it can be really intense. And so those are the biggest obstacles that I see: the belief in yourself, and then that obstacle of putting yourself out there, because you really are putting yourself out there, never have before. You are exposed and you have to be okay with that.
Definitely. I,
Hmm.
I, I agree. And what about the shiny object syndrome? Do you find that I know that was one of mine.
Yes, shiny object syndrome. That one's hard. So we all, okay, we all go into business and you have this picture in your head, right? Because you have watched some of the wonderful women who have come before you do this. And it's like, wow, she did amazingly well. She made $1 million last year. That is so awesome. You get in and you're like, I'm going to do the exact same thing. And this is where the shiny object comes into play. Because most people who have made, if true, $1 million that last year have done a crap load of work you know, or stuff to that point. And that's not off, they often expose those things.
Yeah.
So from the outside looking in, it seems like something that's totally attainable. And it is totally attainable. But there's a lot of background work that goes behind that. And when you start doing your work, you think, I must be doing something wrong because it's not going as well or as quick as I want it to go. And she seems to have got it down packed because she made XYZ amount of money last year, and I can't making that amount of money.
Yeah.
It's to stop. It's a combination of the shiny object syndrome and then comparisonitis, which is
Oh,
very bad as well.
sure.
Trying to compare your step 1 to someone else's step 20, and it's not a good idea. So my cure to that, when comparisonitis or shiny object syndrome kicks in, you have to disconnect. And so you have to kind of everything that you seem to be comparing yourself to or trying to aspire to that may not be realistic for where you are at this point right now.
Right.
Have to disconnect from it a bit and it one of those things that you put on your vision board, right? That it's like, I'm going to get there, because you're definitely going to get there. But in this moment, in today, you cannot feel bad about not being there yet. So then you start to do whatever it is that you do to work towards that, but you have to disconnect from that ideal.
Mhm.
It really is, it can be hard, but the more that you can create your own ideal, else's success and someone else's shiny object for them may be good, but it might not necessarily be what you want or what you need,
Sure.
to find your own ideal.
Well, I think that kind of speaks to really going back to your own values and
Mhm.
touching back on the spiritual piece and authentic and really knowing what you're putting out there.
Mhm.
And we say, look at what other people are doing, really getting in touch again with the core of who you are, what it is you're putting out there, and being able to kind of vision and
Yes.
tune those things out because yeah, there's so many great ideas out there and they all look when in their final form and they're out in the world, they all look fantastic. They look like, oh, that's a beautiful product or a great program. I should do that too. But yeah, coming to center and saying, is this really in alignment with what it is that I'm putting out there and what's at the core? Does it match up with that that starting point, my
Mhm.
values, and how I want to show up in the world? So
Exactly. That is so very true.
yeah,
It all starts with a blank page. Where you are today is starting with a blank page, and where that other person is in their journey, it started with a blank page too at some point.
yeah,
So it became shiny and beautiful, and everyone in their, aspired to that. Like it all started with a blank page, and we have to remember that.
yeah. Probably 10 to 15 years ago, the overnight
Exactly.
success that happened years in process.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think we all all are familiar with that. So, uh,
It's true. So, so true.
yeah. So, I'm curious for your own self, what's something that you do in your daily life, in your spiritual practice that you found that's really been helpful in creating and making this business that you have now? What's something that you implement?
One of the biggest things I think that I have tried to strengthen and implement over the past couple years has been really listening to my intuition.
Mm,
And I find that when I have an idea for my business, and I've had plenty, there is that initial spark of brilliance, and it's like, yes, you have to do this, this is amazing. And it's like, it's like the feel all the feel good chemicals start to release, and I am dead set on this idea, and it's happening, and everything's wonderful.
Yeah. The
And
honeymoon period.
yes, yes, the honeymoon period of business creation. And then somewhere along the line, I really start to sit down and assess what it is that I'm doing, and I start to check in with myself. And this honestly comes as a conversation that I am having with myself, basically. And this conversation, in my mind or in my belief, this is my intuition that is really talking to me and is kicking in, and it's saying, okay, maybe you should do this, maybe you shouldn't do that. It may have looked good in the beginning, but that's not quite it.
Mhm.
In the times over the past few years where I have ignored that, where I have said, "Oh, but I really want to do this. Let me just try this." Or I've taken the client that I knew that I shouldn't have taken. Anytime that I have went against that voice and have voided that conversation that I had with myself, it hasn't worked out. And so I try to do that daily. Like, I try to check in with myself daily. How are you feeling today? What is it that you want to do today? Do you think that this is the right thing? Do you think this is the right choice? Should you make that phone call? Should you say this to that person? Should you try to pursue that client? Like, I have to make that a constant thing in my life, um, to strengthen it,
Mm.
to strengthen it so that you believe it more and that you can operate from that space. So, yeah, that's daily practice, talking to myself.
Yeah, I love it. It's always a great conversation.
Exactly, exactly. Who knows me better, right?
That's right. Before we end today, what's a practical tip or tool that you can share with the listeners that they can start using immediately to help them start or build their business?
I would say one practical tip would be to give yourself 7 days of complete authenticity. Just,
Ooh,
yes, 7 days of complete authenticity. And what that is, it's like an exercise, basically, to strengthen your authenticity muscles. So for 7 days, you are going to be authentic on social media. You're going to be authentic in your conversations with people, friends, family members, clients, whatever. You need to just bring more of yourself forward. It's okay to be vulnerable. You don't have to like go and belt out everything that's happening if you don't
sure.
want to, but just take a couple moments, throughout the 7 days to really be vulnerable, to really say how you feel and see how people respond to it. Because that's going to be something that you're going to have to get okay with in business.
Yeah.
That you're going to have to be fine with exposing a little bit of yourself, especially if you're bringing your spirituality forward and you want them to connect with you on that deeper level. You're going to have to be authentic, you're going to have to be open. So take 7 days to try that out. Try it out in your life, try it out in your Facebook statuses, take those makeup free selfies on Instagram or whatever it is, however being vulnerable feels to you. Whatever that may be, just try that for 7 days so that you can become comfortable with that feeling, because there's going to be a lot of that happening for you.
That's an excellent tip. I think I'm going to take you up on that challenge. 7 days
Good.
of,
We could
yeah,
start together. We can do
yay.
it this week.
So thank you, Shakima, for joining me. I had such a fabulous time talking with you today. So lots of
Thank
great
you,
tips.
Angela. Thank you so much for having me. Our conversations are always a ton of fun.
I
So,
know, I know. They are. All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening to the Awakened Goddess show. If you enjoyed our conversation, make sure to subscribe. And until next time, goodbye, everybody.